Next up on the menu is a fighting game that received a lot of flack upon its release, but after spending a little time with it, always being critical of quote-unquote professional reviews, and seeing the developer's resume and that finally tipping the scales, I finally decided to purchase and review Kabuki Warriors. Is this game as shitty as everyone says? Does it deserve all the negative press it gets? Well, let's do a little research first. And we're going to do this in real time. I'm going to shake things up a little bit. So, let's go ahead and let's go... Let me pull this up here. Now, what's the first place people usually go to on the internet when they want to find out basic information on something? Wikipedia. So let's pull up the Wikipedia article here. Let's give this a whirl here. Let's see. Kabuki Warriors, released in November 19th, 2001 in North America, February 28th, 2002 in Japan, where it's known as Zan Kabuki. Okay. Co-developed, published by Crave Entertainment, co-developed by Genki and Lightweight. If you aren't familiar with Lightweight, they're the developer that tipped the scales in favor of, you know, finally biting the bullet and purchasing this, giving this a game a fair chance. They're the ones who actually made Bushido Blade 1 and 2 on the PlayStation, and Bushido Blade 1 and 2 are some of my all-time favorite PlayStation games. They're absolutely amazing. So, I mean, like, how bad can this be if the actual people who worked on Bushido Blade 1 and 2 worked on this? So, we'll see. Then, there's a small section dedicated to the reception of the game, and this is pretty much what we all know. The game was universally panned by critics, received a 1.4 out of 10 on GameSpot, and earned the distinction of being named Worst Game of 2001. That's a bold claim, because I actually went on the Moby Games database, which is where I get most of my main information from, and I pulled up a list of every game released in 2001 that's at least known on the site. There was over 2,000 games released, so you're going to go ahead and just throw out a claim like that it's the worst game released all year on any platform. Well, you know, I did some research. Anyone who watches my videos knows me. I do a lot of research before I open my mouth, as most people should, but I digress. In 2001, let's see, Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare was released. And I've played through that, and I've played through the entire Alone in the Dark series, and I don't know, guys. I actually think this game is better. Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare was... First of all, it's a fitting name. It was just fucking terrible. It was not Alone in the Dark at all, but this review isn't about Alone in the Dark, so I'll leave it at that. Then we received Derek Smart's masterpiece, Battle Cruiser 3000 AD. You know, because, you know, Derek Smart is a Hallmark game designer. We all fucking know that. You know, like give me a break. Let's see, what else was released in 2001? Oh, Army Men Green Rogue. Because we know the Army Men series of games are heralded classics, right? My Little Pony Friendship Gardens. Do I even need to say anything? Better. Meaning this is better than that. And you know what else was released in 2001? Let me think. Oh, I know what was released in 2001. This abomination. Is Azuric better than Kabuki Warriors? We'll have to wait and see and find out. Let's see. Let's go back to the Wikipedia article here real quick. Edge magazine, since its inception in... I'm sorry, got a little ahead of myself. It was the first of only 2 games that have received a 1 out of 10 from Edge magazine, whatever that is. I don't remember an Edge magazine. Since its inception in 1993. 1 out of 10? This game has flaws, and I'll get into it, but it's not that bad. It's really not. 1 out of 10. So we know without a shadow of a doubt that Edge Magazine doesn't know a truly bad game from their own assholes. So then we'll move on to Game Informer, giving the game a 0.5, and this is the most popular critical review this game has received. With the comment by editor Andy McNamara, quote, "I literally won a match just bashing the controller against my ass. I wish I was joking, but the score is seriously Kabuki Warriors 0, my ass won." Okay, first of all, who would be crazy enough to do an experiment like that? Okay, so I'm assuming by tournament mode they mean tour mode, so let's do that. Motherfucker. Some of this? Can't handle this. Game Informer magazine, motherfucker. Oh, I did something. Maybe I'm using the wrong cheek. I don't know, Andy. This is kind of hard. Oh, it's gonna run the time. Run the time. Come on. And I lost. You're full of shit. He seriously had to be joking with that claim, because anyone who knows who's played a fighting game past the title screen, the first 1 or 2 fights in the main game mode of any fighting game are basically practice bouts against the AI. So to pull that off, he had to get extremely lucky. So let's see what else we have here. Let's take a quick look at the portfolios here, and I'll get right into the main review here. Let's check out what Genki's done. Genki doesn't really sound all that familiar, so let's check out their resume real quick. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it was co-developed by Genki and Lightweight. I did mention that part, but I don't know exactly what parts Genki made and what parts Lightweight made, so let's see here. I think Genki is the American part of the development, maybe? Like the excuse me, the translation part of it. And Lightweight, I know they're Japanese, so let's see here. Developed by... So there's not many titles that stick out. Burning Soldier for the 3DO, Fighter's Destiny for the N64, Hang On Grand Prix for the Sega Saturn, the Jade Cocoon games for the PlayStation and PlayStation 2, Kengo Legend of the Nine for the 360, Phantom Crash, and Maximum Chase, both for the Xbox in 2002. Maybe you'll see those soon. Let's see, the Tokyo Extreme Racer series on the Dreamcast and the PS2, and Sword of the Samurai in PS2, which I think was Kengo too. And speaking of Kengo, let's go and check out Lightweight real quick. As previously said, they made the Bushido Blade games, and if you haven't played Bushido Blade, you're really missing out. They might seem a little dated nowadays, but they're excellent. If you still have a PS1, or like even if you have EPSXE on your computer, one of the PlayStation emulators, go track down the disc, track down an image, do whatever you got to do. They're really amazing. Yeah, Lightweight made all 3 Kengo games. Kengo 2 is actually called Sword of the Samurai here in the US, but it's actually Kengo 2 in Japan. Let's see, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, they made that, which, that's interesting. And that's really about it. Bushido Blade and Kengo are the most popular ones. They have a couple other Japanese ones here, but it's kind of interesting. And then we get into the reviews, which we'll take a closer look at these.
Before we jump right into my review of the game, however, a brief history lesson is ideal on the subject of Kabuki. Just what the hell is it? Kabuki is basically Japan's take on Shakespeare. It is a type of dramatic performance with eccentric trademarks that include dancing, striking poses, and wearing different makeup styles that all give the audience light to different characters and their personalities. Kabuki performances can either be retellings of historical events, or have more common domestic themes such as love or pure dance performances. The main draw to Kabuki theater were actually the actors themselves, as opposed to the set pieces and plot of the story being told in a traditional play, and actors would act more aggressive and flashy or more calmly and natural, depending on which region a show would take place in. The whole thing started in 1603 with some chick named Izumo no Akumi dancing in Kyoto's dry riverbeds. She would eventually get to perform in front of the imperial court due to the dancing's growing popularity. The first popular widespread instances of Kabuki were performed by women in the red light districts of modern-day Tokyo, and while it gave pop culture a jumpstart in major Japanese cities, the shogunate at the time banned women and young boys from performing Kabuki when it started causing too much of an uproar. The performers often being prostitutes on the side didn't help matters either. Eventually, young men were picked to play women's roles on stage due to their high-pitched voices and less masculine appearance to fill the void of female roles. Much of Kabuki's trademarks were established in the Genroku era between 1688 and 1704, including professional playwrights, poses, and makeup. Poses in Kabuki are known as miya and occur when an actor stops in place to draw attention to himself to display a critical event to his character, the performance, or both. The makeup styles on top of the base white, known as kumadori, help represent which entity an actor is supposed to represent, such as red stripes indicating a lead role of a hero, purple veins, black facial hair, and dark blue eyebrows indicating a villain, blue stripes showing an actor as a ghost or spirit, usually with repressed negative emotions, and gray and brown colors signaling an animal or monster role. After a brief 26-year period of Kabuki plays being driven underground, the Tokugawa shogunate disbanded and Kabuki came back to the forefront during the Meiji period with modern styles. It would briefly be banned by the occupying forces for a few years after World War II ended, but eventually bounced back again since, much like Jennifer Grey, you can't keep Kabuki in a corner for long before it manages to waltz out of it. Today, theaters still exist in Japan, both in major cities and in the countryside.
Alright, now that we've used the wonderful resource known as the internet to know exactly what we're getting into with this game, it's time to adorn our robes and sharpen our blades, because it's showtime. How well did Genki and Lightweight incorporate fighting game elements into the tradition of Kabuki? Only one way to find out. You know what time it is.
After the introduction, we're presented with the title screen, which has 5 options. Going from the bottom to the top, credits lets you review everyone involved in making this game if you absolutely cannot wait to see them after finishing the game. Wait, what? Mike Arkin produced this game? Wait, the same Mike Arkin that produced Total Recall on the NES and threatened to shoot Sean Baby? Holy fuck. What the hell is this guy up to nowadays? Anyway, going back to the main menu, options let you configure elements of the game such as battle durations and tour mode, audio levels, and toggling controller vibration, while versus mode and time attack mode are very similar. Both modes let you use all 12 of the game's fighters right away, with the differences being versus mode obviously being a 2-player mode, whereas time attack mode is a single-player version where you try to defeat all of the other CPU-controlled fighters as fast as possible. Due to their similarities, I'll be focusing more on time attack instead of versus mode, since the latter is literally just a 2-player match where you get to choose what backdrop to fight in front of. If you really want to see footage of it, there are excellent options on YouTube for that. Time attack mode is the ideal way to get a feel for each character to find which one suits you and your playstyle the best. Despite the back cover of the game saying there are 24 different characters to choose from, this claim is generous to say the least. Actually, no, it's not generous. It's a straight-up lie. Since these are all of the characters in the entire game, where do they pull the 24 out of their ass? Because each of the 12 characters here have an alternate costume that can be selected by holding one of the triggers down and then pressing the A button.
Here's a tip for developers free of charge that want to make a fighting game. If you take the characters that are already in the game and you give them options such as wearing a hat or not, or giving them a blue robe as opposed to a red robe, it's not, nor will ever give you the excuse to count them as extra characters, especially when they're the same exact character with the same exact moves.
The manual doesn't even tell you about the alternate costumes either. I literally found out about them on accident when messing around with the different characters. It's not all that surprising when the instruction manual is a staggering 6 pages long. I'm pretty sure I've seen single-ply sheets of toilet paper thicker than this. So let's get into the game itself. You would swear this game gave people cancer as soon as their Xbox started to spin the fucking disc up, but it's not quite as bad as people make it out to be. First, the obvious things. Your goal in time attack mode is self-explanatory. Get through all 12 battles, including a mirror match with yourself, as fast as you possibly can. The graphics are hit and miss. The display shows off the usual energy bars for both characters with a timer in the middle of them, though I have no idea what the house here is supposed to represent, the amount of money earned from the crowd, and the popularity meter at the bottom of the screen. The actors themselves, and especially some of their wardrobes, have physics of their own and do look impressive for a game made this early in the system's life cycle, but the menus and stages themselves leave a lot to be desired. You can make an argument of authenticity here since, like I said before in my brief history section on Kabuki, virtually all the focus and the performance went to the actors as opposed to the stage and the plot of the story themselves. On the other hand, this is a video game, and if Genki is going to give dance actors sharp objects to kill each other with, couldn't they at least have made the crowd and the stages a bit more exciting? You can't even see the audience members who throw money onto the stage unless both actors are on the opposite sides of the stage, which pulls the camera back all the way to the rear of the arena, and they're just static stick figures. A few liberties to tradition wouldn't have hurt much, guys. Speaking of lack of expression, the actors could have used a little themselves. While the sound effects of voiceovers, clanging swords, and the slashes you hear when successfully landing a hit all do a decent enough job, the actors themselves never move a single muscle in their face and come off like creepy wax statues that have come to life. Since the graphics engine doesn't seem too busy at any given point, they could have taken a little bit of time to improve this area as well. There's not much to say about the music. It's there, and it's a small selection of tunes that match generic rock with traditional Oriental music. Nothing to write home about, but nothing offensive either. All that aside, how does the game actually play? Pretty well, actually. Compared to more popular fighting games, Kabuki Warriors is on the basic side, which is both its biggest strength and its weakness. Don't expect to learn any frame data here or worry about cross-ups, 2-in-1s, option selects, or 30-hit combos. Marvel vs. Capcom, this ain't. I easily got a feel of the game, learned every character's moves, and got a generally good idea of when to use specific moves after going through time attack with each fighter a couple of times. The controls are snappy with no delay to them. Each character has 3 stances, high, mid, and low. Pressing up or down on the left analog stick or D-pad change your stance to high and low respectively, while your default stance is mid. Using the A button to attack along with these 3 stances introduce you to each actor's basic combo attacks, while using the X button with the stances blocks your opponent's attack. Simple enough, right? Once you get that down, you can use the rest of the D-pad or analog stick to figure out all of the other moves. Pressing forward, backward, or any of the diagonal directions in conjunction with the A button results in all sorts of different attacks. For example, pressing the down-forward section of the pad executes your character's launcher attack, which you can sometimes follow up on with a mid-air attack by jumping with the B button. Rounding out all of the other moves are performing a roll with the Y button, which changes your direction as well as gets you out of harm's way, pressing the A and X buttons together to perform a throw when next to your opponent, dashing away or towards your opponent by either double-tapping the desired direction with the D-pad or holding one of the trigger buttons while moving, holding up and A together while your opponent is on the ground to perform an attack from above, pressing or holding the black button to address the crowd with a pose or a dance to earn their popularity, and finally, setting off your character's special move with the white button when you earn enough of the audience's respect. This is shown when your side of the popularity meter starts flashing. Sounds like a lot for a supposed shitty and shallow fighting game, huh? It has a surprising amount of depth that proves otherwise. Each actor has their own strengths and weaknesses. Sadakiro, while looking ridiculous as a cross between Ronald McDonald and Andrew Dice Clay, is one of the fastest and versatile characters in the game. His attacks are quick, yet his movements are fast, making him very well balanced. His launcher is very effective, as is his special move, which causes him to summon a fucking tornado out of nowhere. Since there is only one way to dodge this move, it usually sets up the opponent for punishment, since the roll will cause Sadakiro's opponent to be directly in front of him but facing the other way. His stage and time attack and verses probably has the best music too. His alternate costume is him wearing his hat. Gon Roku is slightly above average overall. He has a slow launcher, yet has a fast upward strike in midair to follow up with if you can pull the launcher off. His high attack and back directional attacks are swift, while the rest of his moves are mostly telegraphed, which makes it easier for his opponent to block them. Despite these flaws, however, he also has probably the fastest special move in the game, which can do considerable damage to anyone who leaves a slight opening for it. His alternate costume is a blue outfit with a headband. Danjo is one of the most stylish characters in the game due to his ordinate robe, yet one of the least versatile characters due to his slow moves and very close range special you have to have an opponent in throw range for to connect with. While his frontal directional attacks do considerable damage if you manage to land them, they're a bit on the slow side. Good luck doing so against an opponent who knows how to block and isn't stupid. His alternate costume has him wearing a harvest-colored robe and headpiece. Suke Roku may look ridiculous having a parasol as a weapon, but don't underestimate him completely. He has a fast low combo, a quick back direction kick attack, and 2 launchers, yet the rest of his attacks are on the slow side. His special move, while fairly easy to block if you catch it in time, is useful as it is cool, and there's nothing stopping you from chaining 2 of them together by performing a dance or pose to gather more popularity to give your opponent the shock of his life. His alternate costume dons him a pink headband and parasol as opposed to his normal blue getup. Kakinosuke is a dude. Let's make that clear right now. Dude. Man. Male. Guy. Bro. Certified penis owner. Get it? Got it? Good. Remember that women were banned early in Kabuki's history, and some men stepped up to play the part and became known as Anagata. While Kakino isn't as nimble as Sadakuro is, he is quite agile. Despite having a fairly lame and easily dodgeable special attack consisting of colorful smoke bombs that can temporarily stun an opponent, he has the best bait attack in the game. A back-directional attack that results in swinging his sword in a wide arc while retreating from his opponent at the same time. While it deals a decent amount of damage on its own, it takes double away if the opponent is in a retreating or running animation. A very powerful move, this. His normal combos ain't that bad either. His alternate costume consists of a blue robe and blue lipstick. Tadanobu turns out to be a slightly less interesting version of Ganroku. While he has a decent bait attack of his own, it's not as effective as Kakinosuke's, and his special move, while similar to Ganroku's like the rest of his moves, is telegraphed and therefore easier to block. His alternate costume is a white robe as opposed to his normal black one. Goro seems more fit for a sumo wrestling match than for swordplay, but as the old saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. While some of his moves are a bit on the slow side, he's not a lost cause. His upper back directional attack launches a quick defensive somersault move, and his forward kick is excellent for closing the distance to his opponent to perform a throat and to leave his opponent on their back before they know what's going on. Use special care when launching Goro's high attack, however. It's very slow and telegraphed, yet the damage it does really isn't worth the risk. His alternate costume is blue body paint as opposed to red. Ukon definitely gets the most style points of all the actors, and he isn't that bad of a fighter either. His attacks are balanced, he has 2 launchers, and has a neat special move where he turns invisible for about 10 seconds. While it may seem idiotic at first to have an ability to turn invisible on a 2D plane, this move does 2 important things. 1, it doesn't let your opponent see what stance you are in and if you're blocking or not, and 2, it slowly recharges your health. It's worth mentioning that Ukon's high attack is a bit on the slow side, but has an interesting quality on the 3rd strike as he hits his opponent from the side and switches places with him, which will also leave his back exposed, so be careful. His alternate costume is actually an alter ego character named Seikon, and yes, Seikon's moves are exactly the same. Shiroko, Haiko, and Kuroko are all essentially the same. Other than their outfits being slightly different colors, all 3 of them fight with a kendo stick, have an alternate costume that simply removes the veil in front of their faces, have no special moves, and are pointless overall. The only reasons I see them being included here is for masochistic players to handicap themselves into making the game more challenging, and to show the unforgivable laziness of Genki and Lightweight. Would it really have bothered the developers that much to make even subtle differences between these 3 characters, or better yet, scrap them and make 3 more unique characters that are actually worth fighting with? All 3 of them don't even have a Kabuki dance at all, and just do the same standard Mia pose, which is pointless since they can't execute signature moves even though they can raise their popularity. Stupid. Kagekiyo is the game's resident badass. He has 3 launchers, counting his throw, a fast and deadly forward attack, and can calmly summon a giant fireball out of the palm of his hand. He seems like an obvious favorite until you realize that he cannot be used in tour mode since he is part of the star troupe of actors in Kyoto, and as such, the final boss of the game. His alternate costume has subtle differences compared to his normal one. Now you have a better idea of what fighters to use in tour mode, the main part of the game. The premise here is to take your troupe of 3 Kabuki warriors to the city of Kyoto, the entertainment capital of Japan, and defeat the stars of the city to become the greatest and most renowned group of actors yourselves. The gimmick that makes it interesting is that you can take turns with 3 other players, with the first player getting their troupe to Kyoto being declared the winner, and if any given player travels to a city where another player is at, they can challenge their troupe specifically instead of battling another group controlled by the CPU. While this mode isn't overly complicated, it has its fair share of problems. There are 53 total locations to battle in, with the sole focus of earning enough money to get to Kyoto as fast as possible, meaning you only have to fight in around 10 towns total, which makes over 85% of the stages in tour mode absolutely pointless. Talk about quantity over quality. And before you ask, yes, I fought in every single stage to see if it made a difference. It doesn't, so don't waste your time. As a matter of fact, since your journey is measured primarily in the days it takes you to reach Kyoto, fighting in every city takes over 50 days, which won't even get you a spot on the rankings at the end of the game, even on a fresh scoreboard with no previous records on it, so skipping most of the cities and finishing tour mode in less than 20 minutes is actually encouraged. At least the money you earn in battles actually has that purpose instead of in time attack mode where it acts as a meaningless score, I guess. The battles themselves follow the best 2 out of 3 rule for both sides, and whomever wins the battle gets the opportunity to trade one of their characters for one of the opposing team's actors. The more you travel along, the more likely you will have assembled a crack group of actors you are pleased with, so the option to skip the trade altogether is handy. It's too bad though that the backgrounds look more boring here instead of the more scenic ones each character received in time attack and versus mode. All you get here are the extremely generic static paint drawings on the backdrop that slightly change from city to city. Lame. Speaking of lame, slightly different combinations of the 11 of the 12 characters from time attack mode are at every single city in this mode with the exception of Kabuki, who shows up at the last stage. That's just downright lazy. It's bad enough that the game has 3 of the 12 characters that are mundane and non-specific, and a 4th character you can't even use since he acts as the boss for tour mode. That leaves a whole 8 characters with a speck of uniqueness to them that are brought up over and over and over and over and over again across the entire map. It becomes even more stupid when you finish off each of these characters by puncturing them so badly that their veins spray out blood like a fire hose from an adult version of a Looney Tunes cartoon or some shit, and then they show up at the next city perfectly fine. So they were just acting, I guess? How do you lose that much blood in a quote-unquote performance and make it interesting enough to do over and over again? This just wasn't thought through that well. When you finally get to Kyoto and defeat Kabuki and his star group of actors, the game gives you a simple congratulations message while scrolling across the map once again, followed by a ranking screen and then the credits screen. Other tips I've picked up from playing the game for the past few weeks are as follows. Attacking just before the end of your jump can catch an opponent off guard with a downward swipe as well as lead right into a combo. Never underestimate throws when you're close to an opponent. It's a quick way to counter obsessive blockers and leaves them vulnerable on the ground for at least a few seconds for you to perform a quick dance for popularity or go in for a pounce attack. While a pounce attack may be tempting since it almost always lands, your actor is almost always left wide open for a recovery strike from an opponent, so think twice if you are low on health. If you feel yourself becoming too predictable, double tap toward your opponent and quickly press A to perform a slide attack to knock down your opponent. This will give your foe another quick attack to worry about defending against, since it is almost impossible to see coming if done right. Never underestimate your opponent in general, whether it be human or CPU. The thing I hate most about fighting games in general is the computer's ability to magically start being 2 moves ahead of you no matter how much you mix up your strategy and moveset, and it's no different here. If you give the computer enough breathing room or whiff a throw once in a while, they start pulling combos out of their ass and manage to block every one of your moves until they magically get an opening and usually go for a launcher. In summary, get well rounded with all of the characters, pick 3 or 4 you feel extra comfortable with, learn all of their moves, how fast their moves are, and play smart. But what if you don't want to play smart? Let's go back and take a closer look at the highest rated review on the game's Metacritic page from GamePro, which states, quote, "Between the overly simplistic fighting system and weak enemy AI, the game is way too easy to beat. You can successfully complete the tournament mode by doing nothing but mashing the A button." Preposterous, I thought. How can a game with as many combos and movesets as it does have all be dismissed by pressing one single button over and over again? So naturally, I had to test it out. Sometimes you may lose at the final battle against Kagekiyo in either mode, since the AI amazingly stops pissing on its balls for a minute to put up somewhat of a fight, but even then, you practically made it through the entirety of the main game mode with one button, and you can still win by causing more damage to your opponent and running the clock down. Unbelievable. To be perfectly fair though, this has a 50-50 chance of working, since I did encounter failed attempts during this experiment in tour mode. You have an increased chance of winning by using different characters with a faster default attack, but if your opponent decides to jump over you and finish you off from behind, you will lose the battle, and performing a roll to switch sides to face him would require pressing another button, which renders this entire conjecture obsolete. All of these results hold true for time attack mode as well, without the added benefit of running the clock down in a match due to the infinite clock timer, which makes this whole exercise even harder to do in this mode. In conclusion, GamePro's impression is possible if you get very lucky.
I figured that's all there was really to know about the swordplay in Kabuki Warriors until I dug a little deeper in my research and I found out that there's an honest-to-God strategy guide to this game. A strategy guide. Not just any strategy guide, mind you, an official Brady game strategy guide. That's 112 pages long. Holy fucking shit. What could this wondrous and mysterious text hold for someone like me who figured out all of the fighters and virtually all of their moves and beat tour mode and time attack mode with no problems in less than a week? I mean, I know I said before in my videos, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record now, that I like to figure out things in video games by myself, and all of the tips I just mentioned I figured out all on my own without any help. But, you know, my curiosity was piqued. Like, what could a guide hold for this game that's seemingly so simple, right? I mean, wouldn't your curiosity be piqued as well? So naturally, I took to the internet and I looked at all four corners of the internet for a digital copy of this guide, just to leaf through it and see exactly what was in it, you know? And I turned up empty, and, you know, it didn't take long for me to turn up empty when I realized that no one gave a wild monkey shit about scanning a fucking guide for this. And I even found that no one even took the time to scan the fucking instruction manual that's 5 pages long, so I didn't have much hope for finding the guide. And I mean, who would be crazy enough to not only buy this game back in the day for $50, but also buy the guide and take a scan of the guide and scan all 112 pages of it? Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh man, you're thinking, Moraduke wouldn't be that crazy to go out and actually buy the guide just for a review. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got news for you, because this program is high-stakes poker and I'm holding the high aces. Say hello to the official Brady Games guide of Kabuki Warriors.
The guide itself isn't too shabby, actually. It provides things that should have been in the manual in the first place, like the brief 2-page history of Kabuki itself, but also fleshes out the basics more by mentioning tactics such as wall jumps, deflections, air recovery, basic air and ground counters, canceling attacks, rising attacks, and in-depth overviews of each actor's moveset and when to use each individual action.
So, Kabuki Warriors. Is this the worst fighting game ever made? No. Is this the worst game released in 2001? Hardly. Is this the worst Xbox game ever made? Not even close. Now, don't get me wrong, this game does have its flaws. Trust me, they're there. And this is actually interesting, because this is the first game in my series where the vitriol from all the critics that bashed this game back in the day, it comes close to being justified. Close, but not quite. I still think this game got a little bit more of a bad rap, because trust me guys, trust me, as sure as I'm sitting here right now, there are worse games than this. Oh yeah. And if you're going to let it be an influence on your purchasing decision, like me, where you know Lightweight developed this and you know Lightweight developed the Bushido Blade games and the Kengo games for the PlayStation 1 and 2 respectively, you can go ahead and dismiss that just as it pertains to this game. A lot of what made Bushido Blade 1 and 2 really good, if you're huge fans of those games like I am, got completely lost in translation when it comes to this game, so don't let that be a big influence on tracking this one down. Going into the major features of this game, if you can put aside just a little bit the giant gaping hole in the code that runs the AI in this game, if you can just put it aside a little bit, the swordplay is fun. The music and sound effects are solid. There's nothing that memorable, but there's nothing really that offensive either. They do their job. It's solid. And also the wardrobe on the models of the actors that you use in this game, they look really well done, especially for 2001. Conversely, this game has rushed written all over it. This game was so rushed to market. It could have used more polish. It could use more everything, more characters, more detailed backgrounds, a more interesting game mode. It could have used more general information fleshed out in the manual as opposed to saving it for the strategy guide. You know, like especially like the 2-page brief history section on Kabuki that I showed just before. Why couldn't they just put that in the manual? And that's the main hurdle with this game. I think the developers wanted to stay a little too traditional when it comes to the values of Kabuki. So there's a big gap of understanding when someone such as me in the Western world picks this up. There's not a lot of subtitles. There's, I don't think, any English voices in this game at all. So, you know, a lot of the voice acting sounds like gibberish to us in the Western world. But if you do a little research like I did, you know, you take 15-20 minutes, you read about Kabuki, you know, learn something new every day, for God's sake. It's only going to do our world a lot of good. But anyway, you know, pick up a book sometime, kids. If you do a brief history on Kabuki, you get to understand it better, you get to understand a lot more of what's going on in this game, and if you're a fan of Japanese culture, go ahead and pick this up for a few bucks. You might actually be a little surprised. All in all, what can I rate this game? What can I rate this game? 2 out of 5 stars. And this is also the hardest game I've had to rate yet, because I had more fun with this game than Azuric. But it's just, it could have been so much more, you know? If they just, you know, if I didn't see just like giant holes in everything they could have done and they didn't rush it so much and they just put a little more spit and polish on it, this would have been an easy 3 out of 5 stars. When I first started playing this, I was actually going to give it that, but I just can't, you know, when you get down to it. And another big reason why I can only give this 2 stars is that, given the problems with the AI, you'll have more fun playing this with other people, but good fucking luck trying to find one person just to play in versus mode in fucking Kabuki Warriors nowadays in 2013. Hell, have fun finding 3 more people to play tour mode with to get 4-player tour mode going. It's probably not going to happen, like slim to none, you know? But even then, I mean, you think about all the fighting games, just on the Xbox alone, you think of all like the fighting games like Street Fighter and Soul Calibur, and I can go on and on, Mortal Kombat. They're just so much better. Yeah, you're really not going to play this one like you can breeze through this game in less than a week. Excuse me. So it's not going to, it's really how you, how affected you feel by the aesthetic in this game. The whole Japanese Kabuki kind of dressing on this game, you know? So yeah, 2 out of 5 stars. Big time wasted potential, but it's not nearly as bad as everyone says, so take with that what you will. That's all I got, guys. Yeah, Kabuki Warriors. Not bad, but not great. 2 out of 5. that's my mantra. Now if you'll excuse me, after that A button experiment, my stiff thumb needs a stiff drink. See you guys next time. Eeyore, bitches! Fuck. 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 That's close. The fuck is this anyway?